Hey everyone, Forrest here, and here's the situation. I have a really old wooden basement window in my office in my house, and it is letting a lot of humidity into my basement. I can feel a draft when I come next to it, and this basement actually has two of these windows. The other one I swapped out back in October, and that window has been awesome. So I want to do the same thing with this one, and I want to take you guys along for the ride. So let's go ahead and take a look at the situation, and then we'll dive in. And everyone, a quick disclaimer before we pop into this video. This is future Forrest talking, but I am a DIYer. I am not a professional contractor by any stretch of the imagination. But I did notice I had a really hard time finding content of this type on YouTube. And I've done this a couple times, so I figured I'd share what I would know. Do feel free to absolutely annihilate me in the comments down below if I did anything wrong, because I'm not a pro. Pros would maybe have some better ways to do this, but I just wanted to give that little disclaimer before we dive in. So what I want to do, a lot of the problem was actually with the install of this window as well as the window itself. The way this works is there's a 2x4 framed wall on the inside of my foundation. So this is actually just drywall. And then there's a 2x4 framed wall, and then there's the actual basement poured foundation. So what I need to do is I want to reinstall the whole window and use the entire opening. There's actually a 3x4 foot opening in the concrete, and this is like a 2.5 by 3.5 foot window, and I want a bigger window. I want to use all the opening of the concrete. So we're going to cut some of this drywall out. We're going to pull the old window out, throw the new window in, and then retrim, new sill, new all of that stuff as we go. And we might encounter some challenges along the way. I know I did in October. So let's go ahead and dive in. First things first is to clean this area and then rip out these 4 sections of drywall. One thing to always do when you're cutting drywall is make sure you have a super sharp knife and swap it out all the time. So a little utility blade is awesome. Doesn't make much dust, and you can replace those blades super fast. All right, so what I got done was with the utility blade, I cut around this edge. This is actually not going to show when we're all done because the window is going to be bigger, and also we're going to be trimming around it. So I don't really care too much about having it perfect, but I really do want to minimize dust falling on the ground since this is I don't have everything like plasticed over. So what's next is I'm going to pull the window from the outside and then get the pry bar out and start prying this drywall out as cleanly as I can. Make sure that that works. And then once that's done, we'll have an idea of what we're working with for the opening. We might have to cut that opening back, but as soon as I pull that window out, obviously my house is open, it has a big hole in it. So I want to do that at the very end as soon as I'm all ready to kind of proceed with the next steps. I'm gonna get the window under there, the new window under there, underneath the deck, ready to go so that we can do it as quickly as possible. All right, so here's where we're at. We got the all the drywall pulled out. You can see there's my cut line. Worked my way all the way around that. There was obviously corner bead, makes quite the mess. So what we've got here is this section, kind of cross-sectionally through my basement is the concrete foundation. Well, it's a wood piece on the inside of the concrete foundation. And then we have some insulation, and then we have a 2x4 framed wall inside of that. And the problem is that this window, as you can see, here is the actual concrete or the inside of the foundation hole. They blocked out probably a good 2.5 inches, and then the window fits into that. And they did the same thing at the top. The window is actually smaller than the opening, and they blocked in to fit that. Well, the problem is when they framed in the inside of the basement wall, they framed this to the smaller window, not to the original opening. So what I'm going to do is rip this window out, rip all this blocking out to get back to the full size of the opening, which is that 36 by 48 inch. And then we're gonna have to cut this board out of the bottom of the window and put a new board about, 2.5 inches lower. So we're gonna have to cut the stud here, and then move that board down in order to make that work. So what's next is I'm gonna continue the demo inside so that I can still close that window, because I don't think I'm gonna get to the window pull today necessarily. but get that board lower, matched up with the foundation, and then we'll be off to the races. So one thing I should say, anytime you're doing a project like this, is you never know what you're gonna get until you get into it. So I had a little bit of an idea going into this, what I could expect, because I had done the other window in the gym. But this, you know, could have been totally fresh. And so I always recommend kind of popping stuff out, pulling things out, seeing what's behind things in a very careful, methodical way before you start going and buying materials for the job. All right, so we are all prepped for the window. What I did was I cut this top board out here, or this board that was underneath the drywalled region of the window, popped it off, and then there were 2 studs supporting it. One right there, and one over there. And I cut those studs down about 1.5 inches. And then I put this board back in, and now this is exactly level to this. So once we pop this window out, and this becomes our bottom of the new window, we can lay a nice piece of plywood right across these 2 pieces. We've also got a nice shored up piece right here, another piece right here, and then one up top. So everything will be able to be nice and level once we get those inner window pieces in there as well. All right, so here's our friend, the exterior window. You can see kind of a tight space in here, a lot of cobwebs, a lot of nasties, but we also can see that board right there. That's the treated board that our new window is gonna fit into. Goes all the way around there. So the plan is to rip this window out, and then we'll start working on installing the new one. All right, so I got the window out super easy. It was only held in with like 2 screws and some screws around the trim. But we can see here's that board that we're gonna try to nail into. The problem is the rough opening from this side over to this side between these treated boards is about 47 inches. And we need about 47.5 in order to have enough clearance to mount that window in, preferably a little more so we have some wiggle room to make sure it's level. And then the same with the top and bottom. We've got about 35.5, and ideally we have an extra 1/4 inch. So what I'm gonna do now is get these last screws out, kind of clean up down here a little bit, get the sponge out, clean all the wood, and then I need to basically just cut into the wood and take a 1/4 inch off this side and a 1/4 inch off that side to give myself the wiggle room that we need. But I think this is gonna work great. It's looking like I was expecting it to look, which is good. All the wood looks good. You can see this plate down here. This is gonna come out since our new window is bigger. But yeah, we should be good to go. It's cruising along nicely. Whew. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's check out what I did here. I'm gonna flip you guys around. So, like I said, this board stuck out too much into the opening to allow the window to fit. So what I did was cut down here and just notched this out so the window can slide in here, and then we can nail the little nail plate of the window into this surrounding board. Now the top to bottom spacing, this top piece to this bottom was actually plenty. I have an extra 1/2 inch of room, so that's great. But now I have a 48-inch opening from this side all the way over to this side that I notched out. So it's not the cleanest thing in the world, but it definitely beats having to buy a custom size window when it's a lot cheaper to just get a 36 by 48 and call it a day. So what's next is I'm gonna clean all these surfaces with a sponge, get all the dust out of here, vacuum, and then let it dry. And then I'm gonna put some flashing tape on there, which is like a waterproof, let me grab it, a waterproof tape that protects the wood, but I want this to have a really good adhesion. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this area first, let it dry. we'll put the flashing tape on, we'll nail the window on, and then we're waterproof. So that's what's coming up next. All right, here's where we're looking right now. So we got the window nailed in to that plate, and then I took that flashing tape and ran it all the way along the window, all the way down each edge. And now the plan is to protect this tape. I'm going to put a piece of PVC trim over the top and the sides. Now, a couple quick things I'll say on this. This window is very protected from rain because it's actually under the deck, and the deck, any water that does end up on the deck is going to run down this board, and that's actually out past the window. So it really doesn't get that much water, even in a really big downpour. So obviously, if you're in a part of the country where you have more rain than just our little bit of rain that we have here in Montana, this might be different for you, but for us, I'm not going to worry too much about these little holes right here. I'm going to run my piece of trim here, caulk the top of the trim, and then pretty much call it a day. If you have your, if your window is more in like a edge of a house where there's not a big awning over the house and it's, in a lot of exposure zone, you're going to want to, make sure that you have a flashing and that your window is sealed from moisture. But for me, I'm not too worried about it because we're in a pretty well protected area. Oh, look, it's Sarah. She appeared. All right, so this is a little technique that I actually learned from Scott Brown Carpentry, one of my favorite YouTube channels, where we need to basically have a completely level surface. We got to pack the space between the inner window trim and the actual framed in wall. So let me show you what we do. So the easiest thing was we basically got a laser line running plumb to our bottom plate and also to our window. And the way I did that was ran a ruler down here and got even spacing on this side of the beam to the edge of the wood and this side of the beam to the edge of the wood. It's about 15/16 of an inch. Gotta love the imperial measurement system. And then what we do is this beam is shining through here. We hold the ruler out and we see where that line appears. And we can see right here it's at 15/16. But here, if we go to the other framing, it's way more than that. So we have to pack that missing area. And if you do a little subtraction, you can nail in a shim at that exact spot that packs that area. And then we did the same thing down here in the middle. This required a 3/8 pack, so two shims running next to each other, packed to 3/8, and we can see the line runs right about an inch or 15/16. Here, it also runs 15/16, so we have even spacing. And then down at the bottom, Sarah has prepared another one, which is also going to be about a 3/8 inch pack. So we take that packing, we finish nail it in, and then when we take our final piece of wood, it's going to be perfectly plumb to the window. Perfect. Just like that, we are done. Trim is in, 2 coats of paint, coat of primer in the opposite order, and I think it looks great. So, window opens nicely, really good seal, feels super good. Ooh, so smooth. Truly happy with the way that this project ended up. Awesome.